spoilers are coming. Don't be mad at me. I'm telling you. If you're typing away at work and you're listening and you can't shut off this video, I'm giving you like 5 seconds to do so. Spoilers. Okay, let's get into it. Wow, what a fucking great movie. I fucking love this movie so much. Will, you in our spoiler-free review were referencing some things you didn't like about the movie. So I think maybe we'll hold those till later after we've talked about all the things we loved. But from like the opening scene of the movie, I was like hooked and I was in. Luca, I want to know what you knew about Dune before you went into the movie.
Literally the only thing I knew was that it's like a human empire. I knew that on this planet Arrakis, I don't even know what it was called, but I knew that there was like that spice that they needed for some reason. That's what I knew. And that is it. That is all I knew about it going in.
And you've never read the books, you've never seen the David Lynch movie.
Nope,
Will, what about you?
I would say I've never read it. But like I always knew like what it was and like roughly what it was about. I knew that to me, like, because I would always see like Dune in like bookstores and stuff like that, or like online. I'd be always like, I'll just like get it next time, just because I see it like the same way as like one might see like, I guess, like other classic novels and stories and stuff like that, where it's just kind of like we know what it's about. We just heard it so many times, and like, cause like a lot of like my favorite franchises are basically like ripped straight from Dune. So for example, like Chronicles of Riddick, big time, like with the suits and stuff.
Yeah.
So especially like Warhammer 40K is just like identical to Dune.
As soon as I saw the Baron Harkonnen, I was like, oh my god, that's so Warhammer.
Like it completely, like the whole idea of like telepathic humans being like bred to basically like navigate through like space and stuff like that. That's like 100% 40K. But actually one of my friends, he read it this summer. He got the book and he read it, and like he'd always like tell me about it, and it was the same thing. Like I was just kind of like, oh cool, because number one, I didn't know that a movie was coming out, and like again, it was just like one of those things that was always there, and I would just like scroll past it just because I don't know, it's just like I said, like so many things have been taken from it and like replicated and copied and stuff like that, so it just kind of meh.
I think like I can't remember what I said it about. I was mentioning to you guys before we started recording, but I was referencing a different movie that was coming out or has come out, and said it's a shame that it's come out so late after everything that it's influenced has come out. So now it feels like a little bit derivative, even though it was the one that sort of created some of those ideas and aesthetics. And I think Dune, I was worried that would be the same thing. Because there's so many things that are inspired by Dune, like you're saying, Will. Even like Star Wars. Star Wars is like one part Dune, one part Valerian and Laureline. And both of those movies, Valerian and Dune, come out, decades after Star Wars. So it's like, oh, is this just like another Star Wars clone type of thing? And with the latter, Valerian, it's very much, not a high quality film, but at least in my opinion. But Dune, I was worried that it wouldn't be, and it absolutely was. I think like when it was announced that Denis would be doing it, I was automatically sold because Blade Runner 2049 is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love Arrival as well, like you, Luca. And I was talking with Ochi, friend of the show. If you haven't seen it, you can check out his episode on 2001: The Space Odyssey. He was like, yo, I'm going to read Dune before the movie comes out. And I was like, cool, but I'm not, because I want to see the movie, decide if I like it. And if I do like it, I have the book to dive into and be like, oh, there's more. I love that. But if I read the book first and then I have like what I think it should look like, and then I see the movie, I'm going to probably leave myself up for some disappointment. So usually when I hear things coming out, I wait to read the book afterwards. But I don't think I'm going to be able to do that now, having seen the movie. I am absolutely going to tear through this series because I need to know what happens. But yeah, going into it, I had no really, like, I knew it was a thing. I knew there was worms and I knew there was sand, and that was basically it.
And weird ass suits.
Yeah, I love the suits too. Those are super cool. Like that scene I was talking about in our spoiler-free review, where Dr. Kynes is explaining how the suits work, and like you were saying, Luca, there's that reference to the prophecy where like, oh, the Messiah will sort of know our ways, and he's tucked his, his.
I don't even remember what she said.
shoes.
Like the way he put on the feet or the suit was like for sliding or something. She said.
Oh, okay.
I don't even remember. Like I can't remember
like
the words.
It was like the cuffs on the pants.
Yeah.
Like he like tucked them in instead of putting them over.
Right.
Yeah.
So like it serves like that purpose to be like, because there's like every single time he meets people from Arrakis, they're like, when he meets Javier Bardem's character, I forgot his name with an S. You guys remember?
I can't remember.
I should have wrote it down.
Like Sangeet or something. I'm just speculating. I don't know. I'm guessing.
That was
I'll look it up. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah, that was Javier Bardem, and he says to him like in their language, like I recognize you, and it's like all those like little moments to like hint at the prophecy of him being. I wrote this down.
Stilgar.
Stilgar. Yeah, of him being the Kwisatz Haderach.
Ooh.
Or the Mahdi.
Yeah.
Of their world.
And there's another name they refer to him as the Bene.
Oh no, the Bene Gesserits.
Bene Gesserits. So they call him something else though, right?
No, they call him the Kwisatz Haderach.
Okay.
Well, they've been trying to create that being.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, okay, let's get into this prophecy. Again, like one of I think the main focal points of the movie, but I fucking love this. And this is where I first saw like the group I went with, a friend of mine, Jules, said, I was really interested in seeing this movie because I heard that it's one of the reasons Star Wars exists, which is something I've only like vaguely heard. And watching the movie, I was like, oh yeah, this is obscure Star Wars knowledge, but the Jedi were initially called the Jedi Bendu. And like Bene Gesserit, Jedi Bendu. I was like, oh yeah, these are supposed to be that, but the Bene Gesserit are like this dark sort of reflection, almost more like Sith-like than Jedi at all. Like their purpose within the Empire is more similar to me, like the Emperor's arc in sort of like the prequels of like influencing from the shadows, like the Phantom Menace type of character that he serves. But I love this, just that subtle scene between the leader and his mother, where she's like, you were so vain that you tried to create the Messiah like on your own. She was like, but didn't it work? It's so good. Thoughts, Will, on the prophecy?
This is where my gripe is.
No.
Yeah.
We found it.
I love how this whole like Messiah storyline is all just like engineered to happen. Like it's not something that's like, I guess like destiny, fate, because it's like they spent thousands of years like basically breeding him, which I mean I was kind of like, it shows you like how meticulous they were, because they basically skipped a generation, because they were like, because Paul was supposed to be like a girl, and then who was supposed to like, I think marry like one of the Harkonnens or something like that, which I also like. Side note, apparently in the book storyline, like Paul's mother is the Baron's daughter.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
One of her bloodlines comes from the Harkonnen.
Yeah. So, but like I love the idea of like you have like this group that's basically like breaking the Star Trek rule and like going to like other planets and basically like planting these seeds, like prophecy and stuff like that. Like I love the idea that like it's a Messiah story, but it's not like a typical one.
Self-fulfilling messianic prophecy.
Yeah.
It's messed up.
I just hated the casting.
For who?
Of who?
Of Paul.
Wow.
Ooh, I couldn't stand it.
I could not disagree more, but please tell me.
Yep.
I was just like, I don't know, you
Friends
spend like
off.
thousands of years breeding the perfect Messiah figure, and you get Timothy.
Okay. For that alone, you gotta, probably see where you're coming from.
You gotta give that boy some veggies and milk or something. Like Jesus.
No, it's the mind. It's the mind. No, strongly disagree. No.
Yeah.
No, she even says like it's not about the person. They're breeding. It's about mind.
The Chad, and he's not Chad like.
He's not supposed to.
No, yeah. See, that's it's not like they're trying to make Master Chief.
Yeah,
they're trying to make like Yoda.
He even asks her like it's like all for a purpose, like to build a person. Like no, not a person, a mind that can like I have read in a bit more into what that person's supposed to be, and like she says it in there, like to bridge past and future, space and time, like. It's about the mind.
Well, yeah, and we sort of see that
an amazing actor. Like that was I
don't think
they could have cast him better.
I agree with you, Luca. I thought the casting was perfect because
really
he didn't like. I know online there's like this sort of swelling behind like Timothy Chalamet just being like this super attractive dude. At least in the social circles, my online activities around. But
he looks like you you got to put like rocks in his pocket or something because he'd blow away with the wind.
But I think that's like intentional, right? Like I don't think it's not about strength in their breeding. It again, like Lucas saying, it's about the mind. But I was blown away by his performance. There were parts where I was like,
I liked him near the end.
Whereas I didn't know if this was like a character choice or if this was an acting choice. So some of that sort of threw me off, but none of it I thought was like, oh, that felt like Timothy Chalamet. And honestly, this is the first thing I think I've seen him in. I've only,
I've seen him in a few films.
Yeah, he's in The King and he's in Call Me by Your Name, stuff like that. He's going to be Willy Wonka, but this was sort of my firsthand.
Telling me the Messiah is Willy Wonka.
Why not? But yeah, no, I thought he was great.
To me, for basically up until the end of part one, he just felt like a brooding teenager.
But isn't that the point? Isn't that where all heroes come from?
I don't know. But Paul's unlike other heroes.
Yeah, I think like he was, living sort of in his father's shadow, inheriting something he didn't truly want, and then then he, to find out that you were like made to serve some prophecy that's, created by this group of mysterious people. Then you find out your mom's part of them. It's just like how would you reconcile that as a youth?
Even his grandpa was a Chad who wrestled bulls.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll hop into my second gripe about the casting.
Okay, go for it.
Jason Momoa with how facial hair is fucked up.
Okay, that I agree with.
Like when he came on screen, I thought there was like two different characters going on. Like I was like, what? Like,
oh really?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of strange.
My biggest gripe is his name was Duncan Idaho.
Yeah.
No way, that's a sick name.
I agree that the name threw me off quite a bit, but
yeah, it's just funny because
a bit round without a beard, but
yeah, it definitely did. Like he didn't have like the sex appeal Jason Momoa usually carries with him. It was sort of like, here's a dude.
It just looked like a guy who just like hit 43 or something like that.
I'm pretty sure that's accurate.
Yeah,
he was good in it. He was good.
He was excellent. Yeah. Oh man, that fucking scene where he locks the door and oh my god, sick, dude. I'm not even like a big Jason Momoa guy, but like I was like, wow, yeah, this guy went. Oh yeah.
Although I did like the humor, kind of like that, like the joke scene that they had earlier on, like when he first meets Duncan when he flies into the spaceport. And like I thought like it was gonna be like a little bit more upbeat, but I think that was like the only time there was like comedy in the movie. Was when
there's a few scenes that and I spoken about this to my girlfriend before, is like sometimes with Marvel movies, the jokes that the characters make are jokes that we as an audience will find funny because they relate to things in the real world, or they're drawing a parallel between how different their world is to ours. But the jokes break the fourth wall often. And I don't like, I can't say I hate that because I love those jokes in Marvel movies, but I hate that type of humor in high fantasy or high sci-fi, because I think breaking the fourth wall in a property that has so much world building is such a disservice to what that world is. Like if you have to make a joke about current politics in this epic of like the world's completely different, I don't know, it's just a disservice. So I liked how the jokes in the movie at least were like jokes that were funny in the context of the scene that was happening, not so much as like, hey,
and they were very minimal, and they all happen at the start of the film. Like once the emotional weight of the movie starts happening, there's no more humor, which is what I love, because as we were talking about Marvel movies, like a Marvel movie has never hit hard ever, not once. Like none of them I could take seriously. Like I couldn't. There's no, even like only Iron Man dying at the end of Endgame was like, okay, that was kind of sad.
For me personally, there's a lot of moments in Black Panther that hit, but I think to what you're saying, those hit for external reasons, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the first Captain America.
But I think a lot
of Captain America.
I think a lot of Marvel.
The green screen effect looks like a comic book background.
Anyways, we're getting off topic here.
All right.
Go back to the prophecy, the Bene Gesserit. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Bene Gesserit.
Bene Gesserit. Super cool. The scene. This is a pop culture thing. I had no idea what it was a reference to. Like the box is pain. Then that was cool to see like what like that meant in the context of actually seeing it in the property that came from. So I like that. That scene was really cool. What were you guys' thoughts on like the voice, like that power?
I loved the way they showed it. Like I saw a couple clips. I saw like a side by side of the Gom Jabbar scene between the David Lynch version and this version, and I'm talking about the box scene. Like the Gom Jabbar is what she holds at his neck.
That little needle thing.
Yeah, like the needle coated in poison.
Okay.
And the way they did the voice in the David Lynch version was like, it was also like layered voices, but like he walked across the entire room, like slowly trying to resist the voice in that. Whereas in this, in the Villeneuve version, it was like, I watched his about a scene or like notes on a scene on it where he talked about it. Like,
okay, cool.
Once we hear the voice, the next cut is like him kneeling in front of her. Like we don't see that. Like it's like from his perspective where like he essentially blacks out, follows her order, and then he's like back in control of his body.
I love that. Yeah.
And the way the voice sounded was like so like ancient. Like it had like the layered female voices, even when he's using the voice, which I thought was just like such a mystical way of like showing this power.
Yeah, almost like he's pulling on like this wellspring of power that this group of people has access to.
Yeah.
Super, it sort of reminded me of like the witches from Dathomir in Star Wars.
Yeah.
But also like the Thuum from Skyrim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Will?
I like that. I like how like it's just like it takes like skill and like practice to do, like with like when his mother says like you need to fix your pitch and stuff like that, like when they're like being held captive. Like I thought that was pretty cool. And like I like how he did it, and then like the guard walked over and just like slapped him.
Yeah,
it reminded me of like the scene from Force Awakens.
Absolutely, with Rey, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I guess is another sort of Star Wars taking influence from Dune and like the Jedi mind trick sort of being similar to the voice.
Yeah.
Funny thing you say that, because when Star Wars came out, I think Frank Herbert, he wrote a list of like all the similarities between Star Wars and Dune. And because I think that what's his face, Lucas never really admitted that Dune was an inspiration for like a while. So he was like, here's a list of 30 similarities between our stories.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, that's shitty that there was no sort of homage or, official sort of, I took
like
this from
in
you.
episode 4, 5, and 6. I don't know, like, I don't know. Obviously, we weren't around back then, but I do know that there was an article that Frank Herbert wrote, being like, "These are the similarities," and obviously you can see them, out. like the voice and the Force are like so similar in concept. But I think that the voice is much more elegantly done as a magic system in the movie specifically, probably in the books too.
Yeah, I think maybe if you were comparing like Dune Part 1 to Star Wars A New Hope, it might be more of a 1-for-1, but I think because the Force has been expanded on so much, it's like now it's a magic system that like there are really no rules to it anymore. It's just whatever is convenient for the film it's in. So yeah, I definitely, as of right now, I think the voice definitely falls more into like a hard magic system, as far as what we've seen anyways.
Yeah. Also, like as a side note, I loved like how like him and his mother had like the sign language, and then also just like other people as well, like guards. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like, because like one of the things I liked about Dune was like the whole like the court intrigue aspect of it, like with all the great houses and stuff like that. And like they just have like when they're supposed to be like very like formal and stuff like that, but then they still have like an informal secret ways of like communicating and stuff. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, even totally. Paul speaking with the doctor, and just like he can speak his language, but thinks his mother can't speak that language as well. So there's a lot of just like, going behind people's backs type of thing, which is essential to politics, unfortunately. But yeah, super cool.
Yeah. No, I love the whole like great houses thing, and like how like all like the different groups are basically kind of like they have like a lot of elements of like real life stuff. Like House Atreides to me looked very like Scottish.
Yeah, and even with the bagpipes. Yeah,
but like
Atreides... hang on, sorry. Speaking of space bagpipes, the scene where they're fighting and is it Gurley?
Yeah.
Or Gurley, yeah. He's leading he's like, oh, behind me, and he charges into battle. I think that's the last we see of him.
Yeah,
but
I hope not.
For a brief, well, in this film at least, it's the last time we see him. But there's like just like a brief what would you call it? Like a repose of that the bagpipes going off again. And I was like, oh man, that's so uplifting but also devastating, because they're like charging towards their death. It's like,
yeah. And like I also liked how like the great houses weren't like even, like they all kind of like had their own thing. Like the House of Atreides had like the best legions, and then like the Sardaukar had like the most skilled, like I guess like warriors, but they weren't like, there wasn't as many and stuff like that. Whereas like Harkonnens are just like dangerously wealthy. So like yeah, like I thought, like I kind of thought that was like kind of cool. And also like how like the ruling house was like at a disadvantage, so he like played them against one another. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I love how like I think in like
so much like turmoil between them.
I think in the sort of story where like the political intrigue plays such a big part, it's really easy to lose an audience in sort of like the behind the scenes machinations of what's going on. I thought this was done so not subtly, but so well explained. Like just in that scene, like when is a gift not a gift? And then you sort of realize like, oh, they're not being sent there because they've done a good job. It's because they're getting a little too big for their britches. And now the Emperor's like, yeah, I'd rather have these guys gone. So it sets up this sort of
like I liked how like the conflict, like it seemed like a lot of the great houses were like kind of equal, as opposed to like a bunch of like smaller groups kind of like fighting behind the Emperor's back.
Yeah.
Like I thought that was kind of cool how they did it. We don't need air power or sea power. We need desert power.
That was a little that line was a bit corny, but
yeah. And then later on in the film, when he sees the dude riding the worm and he's like, desert power. He's like, oh,
yeah, okay, that was mean?
A little. I also like how they the Harkonnens like estimated the amount of like Fremens to be so low when there's like bajillions of them, just like all hiding away like under the dunes and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, let's talk about them. I thought their society was really cool. Obviously, like our introduction into it is sort of the opening scene of the movie, but also through the character of Kynes, who sort of acts as like the like what would you say, like liaison or like delegate between the two races. I thought was
she
super
serves
cool.
the Emperor,
right?
Yeah,
but she's like part Fremen, or
she is.
Well, that was a secret. She was Fremen.
Yeah, which like I thought was kind of like, how did nobody pick up because of the blue eyes?
Right.
because like apparently,
But
like,
yeah, I thought that was the point, is that she had she was a part of both societies, and that's why she was important.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, we don't see much of like Fremen society in this one. I mean, our first introduction really to their like culture was through oh my god, I forgot his name again. Stilgar, yeah, like when he spits on the table.
Oh my god, that was so good. And the security detail like draw their blades.
Yeah.
And he's like, thank you for your gracious gift. Like, hey guys, be cool. This is a thing here.
Yeah.
But just like how everything in their culture comes back to water because they live on a desert planet. It's like, why wouldn't it?
Yeah. Like,
water's life to them, obviously, to everybody. But like, just like how, when they encounter them later on in the movie in the desert, and they're like, what use to you are like, what riches can you offer us besides the water in your flesh right now? Like, so simple, but also like the way they adhere to it is so like fascinating to me and like sophisticated.
Yeah.
I thought it was super cool.
I love like the whole like Bedouin aesthetic. And then like when you see like the group of like old men, like it looks like they were like setting up like I thought it was like a coffee pot. Like it reminded me of like, like Arabic
Turkish coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, but it was actually them. They were just all just like spitting into it and just like.
Yeah, like a water filter type of thing. Yeah.
And like sharing that. I thought that was like kind of cool instead of like coffee. Like it was kind of like a parallel world almost. But yeah, no, and like I love like like when you first see them in the movie, I thought they were all like I guess like like Bedouin guerrilla fighters and stuff like that. But it turns out there's like millions of people like living in these like cities all over the place.
Like one of the strong things it did was it had sci-fi elements that felt like so grounded in reality that we know, like the culture of the Fremen feels like a desert culture that's been evolving for thousands and thousands of years, like advancing technology specifically to survive their world, like between the lack of water and the Shai Hulud in the sands, giant worms. Like, it's high sci-fi that feels so grounded. Like, I think one of the main reasons for that is the fact that there's no like just like in Warhammer, like the setup is that artificial intelligence has been banned and computers don't exist. So like the human mind is what's advanced, and all technology exists just to serve specific purposes. They don't think for the technology, can't think for itself.
Oh, okay,
so like that like lends itself very well to realistic technologies that we could already imagine in a sci-fi setting. Like
40K got that from Dune.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is also a cool like a little bit of like retro futurism, like based off the time this was written. Some of like the more sophisticated AI wouldn't have even been created yet. So to be like humans at the forefront of what ends up being technological advancement, I thought was really cool to see it like through that sort of lens of retrofuturism.
Yeah, like the tent that collects moisture. I thought it was pretty cool. Like when it just looks like a tent with like,
or even just like the things in the back of their necks which let them communicate long range type of thing.
Yeah.
Super cool.
And their helicopters called ornithopters.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super. I love they like dragonflies.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, which is like crazy because like if you think about it, like when Dune was written like late 50s, early 60s, and then finally released like mid 60s, like helicopters weren't 100% popular by then. Like they weren't, like not as big as they were. Like, I mean, a few years later when they had like the Vietnam War, they got pretty big, but even before that and stuff like that, like when you would have been imagining it, like, yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I just love it as a sci-fi setup. Like,
yeah, and like the interior of like the ornithopters was cool too. Like it looked like a helicopter interior, like with all the switches and stuff.
I love again retrofuturism, but I love retrofuturism, especially inside cockpits. Like Star Wars, you get all the starting the Millennium Falcon is like flick, flick, flick. Like I just love analog switches. I hate digital press a button car starts, I love turning the key for the engine. So seeing like when they're escaping towards the end of the movie and there's a thought through there, they like him, like, trying to like hurry up as people are like chasing them down, and he's like having to flick all the switches. I was like, yes, I love all these sounds.
Yeah. I also loved how like Duke Leto was like able to like fly it and stuff like that too. Like he wasn't
Yeah.
like, I guess, like pampered, if you will, like, and like I
Because
guess
he wanted to be a pilot.
Yeah. But like, yeah, but like he couldn't because he had to like succeed his father and stuff like that, but he was still able to like rip around with the lads.
Okay, let's talk about casting, because the more we talk about him, the more I'm
I
like,
loved everyone else but the main character.
yeah. Oscar Isaac, I thought was fantastic, and especially like coming off of Stars. I know Oscar Isaac's been in a lot of other things. He's great in Ex Machina. That much I've seen, but I know he's a great actor in his own right. But I'm more drawn to fantasy sci-fi stuff, so I've only seen him in those sort of properties. Coming off of Star Wars, where I feel like he's very underused, not used in the right ways, used as sort of comic relief. Whereas in Force Awakens, he's set up as like this badass character. This was like so relieving to see him like in a role that like you could really chew on. There was like a lot to go off of there. Even that scene, the conversation between he and Paul, where he's talking about leadership and like you have to come to it your own way. It's not just something you take. I came to it my own way. I never wanted it either. But now like I see its purpose and why I should do it. I thought was like really, really cool. And yeah, everything, even like the way he dies, it's fucking so awesome. Everything about his role here, I thought he nailed. What are you guys' thoughts on Oscar Isaac?
He was amazing. Like, I think this scene, the first scene we see him in is when he's accepting the Emperor's decree. And like the delivery of that speech, I was like goosebumps. Like that was so good. Yeah, he was phenomenal. And his beard was just glorious.
Yeah. Are we done here? He tells the Emperor's voice or whatever. Yeah. No, I love him because I know like a lot of like my background knowledge to like Dune is pretty surface level, but like I've always like I did know that like Duke Leto is like was written to be as good as Harkin is evil. So like it was kind of cool to see like how like well Oscar Isaac was to like fit into that. And like
yeah, I guess you see that in the scene with Stilgar where he's like, as long as I'm in charge here, your people will not be like oppressed.
Yeah, and you could tell like when he was saying like it's to me it seemed like he didn't really want to say it because he just didn't want to be there.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I felt like someone who's been put in a really shitty position and doing the best he can for everyone sort of affected by it.
Yeah, like super like guarded and stuff like that too. And like it was like it was kind of like sad to see like how they had to like completely abandon like their space castle, I guess. Like when you see like everything being loaded up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
Well, it's
like,
total like erasure of their culture, right? Like
yeah, and like when when he looks up at the bowl before he, I guess, commits suicide, that was pretty sweet. Like pretty intense, I should say. Not happy for him.
Yeah, I even like the doctor. Like I feel like often in scenes where like that's like a pretty normal thing where like you get a character who has to betray the people they actually care for because their loved ones are in compromising situations. We see it a lot. Usually it's never done as good as I think it was done here, where it was like, hey, I'm sorry I had to do this. Your son, I'm going to make sure everything's right for him. Gives him the ring. And he, like, for Paul, I'll do what I can. And then I'm taking out your back tooth. I'm putting in this kill all. This is what I can do for you. I'm sorry. But he sort of just like lays it all out. This actor, I'm going to pull up his name because I forget it. Super fucking good. Yeah.
It's Chang Chen.
Chang Chen. So good. I think he's in, just about 4 scenes. Obviously the one with Paul where he's checking his vitals. That to me was like sci-fi, but also just like really cool fantasy that like this doctor just like doing all these like hand signs and then he's like, he's good. Again, retrofuturism. But yeah, I thought he was great. What are you guys' thoughts on his performance?
Yeah, he was good. He wasn't in many scenes. I didn't expect the betrayal at all. Like he didn't he seemed like the good doctor type when he was checking Paul before seeing the Mother Superior. Like the one scene where like he tells Paul about the Bene Gesserit, and like his opinion on them. Like I thought that was like a nice subtle like character development for the Doctor, because he's always like answering to Paul's mother, who is a Bene Gesserit,
Right.
But like he still has like both respect for her and for the Atreides house, but he has his own opinion, and his like he cares for Paul enough to give him that information and like try to steer him in his own way, like again for the good of like the character, the good of Paul. So yeah, he was great character, great betrayal. The one thing, like part of me was like, I guess he had to know that he was going to die at the Baron's hands. Like I don't think he ever thought that he'd be getting his wife back.
I think he did. I think he believed that he would. And then that scene was sad as fuck, but like also totally what the Baron would do. Yeah, I don't know. That sucked.
Baron was terrifying.
Yeah.
Like with his weird like mechanism thing, like his Doc Ock thing on his back.
Spine, yeah.
I love like he's sitting there like slumped over the first time you see him, and then the spine turns on and he like or like erect.
Yeah, he like strains and the sound you hear when he
yeah. It reminded me going back to 2049, the sort of eyes that Jared Leto's character uses to see because he's blind, but he has like this band that lets him see through like these floating. They're almost like those meditation stones. Yeah, the sound like reminded me of like the low end of that sound. It was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently the Baron was like poisoned or something like that, and that's why like he looks the way he looks. So apparently he was like even more evil, and he's got,
and
like,
when he's in that healing chamber thing, oh my god,
like they just like they did a really good job of like making them look like bad people. Like
even Dave Bautista, who I love.
Yeah, speaking of Dave Bautista, like he's a surprisingly good actor. Like he was great in Blade Runner in the one scene he was in, and like I think this had a lot of like really good subtle moments in the like literally two scenes he was in this movie. Like the anger when they were being sent off Arrakis, and then like the scene where he's visiting the Baron when he's healing. Like there's like such a subtle like deep fear and respect that he was showing just through his like facial expression. I was like, wow, like Dave Bautista, man, like great actor.
Yeah, like obviously he's great like in what they give him to do in the Marvel movies. Like he's comic relief there, and he's funny. Sure. But yeah, like seeing 2049, it was like, oh wow, this guy's got chops, man.
Yeah, like he has like he can like seriously deliver emotional moments, like very
there's
serious
even
moments.
a 2048 small I guess just short, you could call it, the sort of lead into 2049. And so he has like his own sort of leading short you can check out as well, and he's great in that too. Yeah, Dave Bautista rocks, man.
Yeah, and those like the way they made the Harkonnens, like especially the Baron, was genuinely like terrifying. The first time I saw it, I was like, wow, like this is very, very scary, like very scary looking guy. And then Skarsgård obviously like does the voice as a great actor. Very scary voice. But the one thing, I was listening to an interview where Skarsgård was talking about creating the Baron as a character, and since he was in the huge bodysuit, like him as an actor, he didn't have much to like do other than voice the character. But he specifically requested that the way the Baron moves be very elegant and like almost like a dancer. And when you look at him, like he does move, like when he's like moving himself psychically, like he moves very gracefully for like his gross size, and like that makes him so much more menacing than like
yeah, it's like this inhuman nasty like,
but you can very clearly see that he is a person and not a monster. Like
like
it's just like uncanny, but the way he moves almost even more so, because you would expect someone in the shape that he is that struggle moving so elegantly. Oh man, it's gross.
Yeah, like to me it seemed like when I found out that he had like he was like poisoned or something like that, and like it's almost like he found like a new way to be like evil and menacing, like because of his body condition. So
like the movement, the psychic movement, like I don't know if that's specified in the books in any way. Like we shall see when we read them. But yeah, like the way he moves is just so scary, and like his voice, like this was like a true villain, like a true villain.
Yeah. I want to go back to one of the scenes he's in. Also, one of my favorite character actors is David Dismalchian, I think is how his last name is pronounced. He shows up in a lot of stuff. He's in the Dark Knight, was his sort of first big role. He's sort of the character who's suffering from schizophrenia, who the Joker uses. Batman sort of questioning him. That was like his first big role, but he shows up. He's in Bird Box. He shows up in other DC properties. He's the Polka Dot Man. He's also a villain in The Flash. He's in 2049. He plays Coco, I think the character's name is. The sort of the lab tech who's running the stuff on the bones, I believe. He's such a good actor, and he's so creepy and like reserved, but just a fantastic actor. I just want to give a shout out to that guy. And also like a really just down to earth dude. I've watched some interviews with him. But anyways, they're in a scene where one of the Bene Gesserit is speaking to the Harkonnens and telling them, don't harm the child or the woman. And there's like this spider thing. And it's I was like,
what the fuck is
don't worry, our creature can't understand our language. And then she tells it to leave. And it's like, I'm pretty sure you understood that. Here's some background information. In the books, apparently, the servants to or creatures that serve the Baron are like little boys. So there are a few instances in this movie where like there were changes from the book just for cultural, I don't know what the word would be, but cultural sensitivities that like, yeah, even if that's how the source material had it, might not be appropriate to have it in the 2021 movie. So that was one of the changes they made, was changing that from like little children into spiders. But Luca, you were also telling me there was some like phrasing that was changed for those cultural sensitivities.
The only thing that I know that they didn't use specifically in the movie was when Paul is having when they're in the tent after his father is dead, like him and his mother, and he's inhaling the spice and he starts having visions and he sees a war in his name, like a holy war. In the books is specifically called a jihad, whereas they changed that to holy war in that specific scene. And I know that a bit of the Islamic influence of the Fremen was a little toned down or sort of shifted towards like other cultures that we know. Although they keep a lot of it, like the one name that keeps popping up is Shai Hulud for the giant worms. And that is it's like a derivative of an actual like word in an Arabic dialect. I think it means, there's a few different translations to English, but I think what it's supposed to mean is like sort of there forever, like everlasting. So let's just look this up before talking.
Which I honestly think was probably the right move away from religious aspects and focus more on the cultural ones.
It'll be difficult because this is like the entire story is a religious crusade,
right?
Yeah, which the character gets caught up in. But I read ahead kind of. It was pretty dark. Like,
Okay, so it comes from Shai Kulud. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it can be translated as thing of eternity, thing of immortality. So essentially represents eternity, immortality. So that's like the one bit of Islamic sounding words that are kept in the film. But in the books, I think
sort of served the film better, having like not that specific reference, but changing obviously the children into like the spider type being, because I think it sets up something in the movie that I picked up on, where like she uses the voice on a creature, not a human, and up until that point we've only ever seen it used on a human. And there's a scene where Paul just narrowly escapes being consumed by one of the Shai Hulud. And there's sort of like a moment between them where like there's a little bit of communication, and then the Fremen they run into sort of reference it and say, no, that wasn't him, that was my thumper, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
But I think that's sort of setting up that like Paul may be able to gain or influence these creatures with the voice, even though they're not human, they're just creatures, or huge creatures in this case. But I thought that scene was like a cool setup to imply that later on in the film.
Yeah, I just as like a side note, like when I saw the spider or like the silhouette of it, I thought it was gonna be like some sort of like weird like
Machine.
mutant slave thing.
Oh,
I thought
gross.
I was expecting to be like a bunch of like bodies like stapled together or something. That's what I
Mm.
thought. So I was
Yeah.
like, that's fucking creepy. But yeah,
Yeah, I think it was super gross.
Yeah, it would be the Harkonnen who have spiders around them.
Yeah,
Mhm.
well,
Be
they're,
like,
they're
yeah, it's
like
cool.
slave drivers and stuff like that. That's what
Yeah.
I just assumed that they were like.
But speaking of the Harkonnens and that gross spider thing, one of the main reasons why, first of all, the scenes with the Harkonnens are so oppressive and like dark, is because they used practical sets for everything. Like they built out all those sets. Like,
Yeah.
and then when I think about, for example, the scene where Duke Leto dies, like they built that whole table, like they built that setup, and like it looks so much better
Yeah.
done like that than on a green screen. And
Yeah.
like the actors were even talking about like how impressive the sets were when they got onto set. Just seeing these like massive realistic sets. For example, the Gom Jabbar scene where Paul is tested with the box, that's a real set. Like those high ceilings and the bookshelves in the back, that was really built. And it adds like, I think it adds a layer to their performance because they can immerse themselves in the world, and it sort of like it just adds that bit of subtlety where it feels way more real. Like even though you can't really tell with very good CGI sometimes, like it's difficult to tell. You just assume that something's real or fake or CGI, but like this, when it looks less real, when it looks less processed somehow, like less computer generated, like it just adds that, it grounds it so much more, and it makes the scene so much more.
Yeah, I think it's to do with like cinematography, right? Like lighting. When you're shooting actors and then creating environments for them post shooting them, like you know, the biggest tell with something being CGI is like the lighting on it's shitty.
Yeah.
You know, early 2000s films when you'd see like a dragon, its scales be shiny as all fuck.
Yeah.
You know, and then when you get to something like Game of Thrones, there's dynamic lighting. So like the underside of them is dark as it should be because it's not hitting the sun. For you and I, Luca, it like goes back to miniature painting. You know, if you're staring at something from eye level down, you want to see the same way the sun's hitting it. So you might paint the shoulder pads brighter. But for CGI, it's really tough to do, especially when you're releasing, you know, motion pictures and they gotta be out in a certain time. You run out of time. There was only one scene in this movie where I was like, that didn't look great.
Which one?
There was one where they're approaching the like the sand crawler thing, like the scene with the carryall that fails, but they're approaching it, and I'm not sure if it was just like that's how sand looks, but the sand as we approach it is super, like you can tell it's granular and it looks like sand. And there's a scene where like the hopper sort of like vanishes and we're just zooming in on the craft, and the sand just looks like super smooth. And it's just like maybe they're implying like this sand's been like sifted through for,
maybe they were implying that it was spice and not sand.
Yeah, there was a sort of different texture though. Like as
I know
we got,
the scene you're talking about. I can't like picture that moment though.
My thought was like it was like implying that like this area had been sifted through, and so like all the spice was sort of gone and all that was left was sand. But as we got closer to the vehicle, like the sand started to look real again. It could have been just like my projector at the viewing I was at, but I was like, oh, what the fuck? Wasn't this movie supposed to come out last year? Did they have time to fix that scene? But besides that, 100% agree with you. Denis Villeneuve does, like, you know that scene in Blade Runner against the wall with the water splashing? That's real water. They built this fucking contraption to drop like I don't know how many gallons of water all at once, so the waves that were crashing into them were real. Like who does that? Like so
that's
extra, like
that looks so much better.
It looks so much better. That's the thing.
Even the Baron being a bodysuit that you just like digitally enhance later, like it just adds so much. Like,
and I think it does like although they're professional actors, I think it really does, enhance their performances because it's no longer like you're imagining this floaty guy. He's really there. And I actually watched the final Harry Potter movie last night. And there's a scene with, I can't remember what it's called, but the dish you pour memories into. And it looks so fake. The lighting on it's terrible. Harry's eyes don't always track to it. Yeah. And it's just awful. And then like comparing that to seeing Dune just a couple days ago, it was like everything was like so there in the flesh type of thing. It was awesome. Even like that light that follows them around in their castle before they move is like, that was just like a light on a pole that they green screened out. And it's so good because it's like the lighting is like you can't CGI lighting the same way as it reflects in real life. You just can't do it. I'm actually curious who the cinematographer was here. I have a good guess, but I'm going to look it up. Anyways, Will, did you have any thoughts on the set of building?
Oh, it sucked. Oh, okay. It sucked. No, it was pretty good. I liked it. Like I said, I was totally immersed. Like I didn't even look at my watch or anything like that. And like I'm a chronic phone checker when I watch movies. So yeah, and like I didn't. So well,
yeah, like even the soundtrack, like this is one of the best soundtracks.
Actually, there's one scene that actually made me think about a previous episode that we did on music when we were talking about like how like sounds that are taking place in this like in the scene are also like combined with the music. So with like the thumper when they're running, like him and his mother.
Oh, so good.
That's like that was the first thing I thought about when we talked about that like a month ago or whatever. Like that's all I could think about. And like, yeah, it definitely drew me in.
Oh, I love also similar thing you're talking about, like when Dr. Kynes is waiting to ride the worm, where we first get the implication that that's possible. She sets a thumper and like the music sort of fades away and it's just like the sandworm coming towards her. And like the thumper's like, it almost serves as like a heartbeat as you're waiting for this tense moment. And obviously she gets stabbed and that doesn't go the way you think it's going to go. But yeah, I thought the sound design was super cool. Also, it's Greg Fraser who was the cinematographer. I was actually thinking it was Roger Deakins. So good for Greg Fraser.
Yeah. Also, yeah, I think one of my favorite factions were like the Sardaukars, like the Emperor's blades or whatever. I thought they were sweet. Actually, that voice that you hear at the start, that's one of the Sardaukar like throat singers because like they're like based on like
Mongolian throat singing. I love that scene.
So funny. That's where just quick anecdotes. So yeah, this movie was the first time I ever watched like went to a movie theater and watched a movie like by myself. Yeah. Anyway, how'd you feel about that?
Like super anxious.
Like I think we might have mentioned before like how I used to like live in a different place for a while and stuff. And then so like when I first moved to like this new city, like I really wanted to watch movies, but like I know like nobody like close enough to be like, hey, you want to go watch a movie? So like I'd use like dating apps to like go
go on dates just to see movies.
Yeah, like that's how I watched like Into the Spider-Verse and stuff, like and like Venom. But yeah, anyway, so I went to Dune on my own, which was like super weird. Like I don't know, it was just like being in an alternate universe when I went. Like the whole time was like, it's okay, people do this, nobody will notice, nobody will see me, I'm in a movie theater, nobody's looking at other people. So I like ordered my ticket like ahead, like online, which I fucked up. So I had my ticket, like my seat was like right in front of, like front row, right in front of the screen. Like so it was like shitty positioning, and then like the place was like decently full.
Now like everyone in the theater is behind you. Now you feel like they're staring at you.
Yeah, and like there was quite a bit of people that like I wasn't expecting to be there on like a late showing on a Thursday night. And then so I like get there, I'm like, play it cool. And then like because I was like kind of nervous because as you said, everyone's basically behind me, just like their eyes are drilling into the back of my head. And then so I'm like doing my thing, and then like the screen goes dark. I'm like, sweet, it's gonna start. Then they did like the throat singing voice, and it freaked the shit out of me, and I actually spilled my popcorn all over the ground. I like startled, and then some guy I heard some guy chuckled, like some guy 3 rows behind me. And I was like, damn, like this is the one thing I didn't want to happen. And then when the lights came on, it was like super weird. Just like I wanted to get out of there because I was like covered in popcorn. And then I was like, all I have to do is like beat I guess like the ushers and like cleaning crew and stuff like that. And then like as I'm getting up, there's like one of the workers came and he saw me and he saw the popcorn. You could just tell it was just like, fuck, man. Like it was like past midnight on a Thursday. This guy's just like, this sucks. Like this asshole spilled popcorn all over the place. And now I have to like stay behind and clean it. And I was like trying to shovel like all the popcorn together with my feet. And like, yeah, no. It was like the one thing I didn't want to happen.
Yeah. So do you think you'd ever go back alone?
I probably would.
Just no popcorn.
It was kind of nice though, because like, you know, when you go with other people, then you have to like wait on other people and like all that stuff. So it was like kind of nice, but yeah, I did feel like a dud.
Yeah, I remember the first time I went, I think I went to see Rogue One, and it was like a scheduling error between my sister and I. And after the movie, I wanted to talk about it so bad, but I didn't go with anybody. So I'm just driving home by myself, just thinking about it. It felt shitty.
Covered in popcorn grease.
Second time I went to Wonder Woman alone just because like I had a free pass. I wanted to see it. And I just sat down and like, it was like the people next to me were these 2 girls. They like looked at me and like, "Are you alone?" And I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Oh, okay."
Loser.
That was it. And then I just felt awkward the whole time. I'm like laughing at the movie because it's funny, and they're like looking over at me like, "Is this guy okay?" Like,
yeah. So like when I went, it was like in like the, like I guess like the alcohol adult serving like section or whatever that they have now. So there was people like taking like orders and stuff like that when I came in. I just like felt like a psychopath because I was like by myself, like 5 rows ahead of everyone else, right in the middle at the front.
Like this guy chose this spot. What the fuck's wrong with him?
This guy's deranged, to get away from him.
Love that. Before we wrap up here, any final thoughts on Dune?
Yeah, actually, just as an adaptation, because we've gotten a lot in the recent few years, I would almost even consider Star Wars 7, 8, 9 as like adaptations of, not only because they follow pretty much the same exact story of 1 through 6, but because it's like a different group of people creating a property that like, and Matt, tell me, did Kylo Ren exist as a character before? Okay, so he's an original character.
Yeah, so like Han and Leia had sons before, or children anyways, but not named.
Okay, I just wasn't sure about that, but it was like Game of Thrones. Now we're getting Lord of the Rings, we're getting The Wheel of Time, The Witcher. A lot of these like books are being adapted, and like books we're reading, Matt, like things we've read have sold rights to movies and to shows.
Right.
So like, I think this as an adaptation, like as a movie, it was phenomenal. As an adaptation, I can't speak to it because I haven't read its source material, but regardless of that, like you can feel the fact that the director loves the source material and like deeply respects it and tried to honor it in the work. And that's something that's like so nice to see after getting so many disappointing adaptations, or like that are like almost there. Like for example, The Witcher was excellent, but it wasn't quite there. And like Game of Thrones, we don't even need to talk about. Like Star Wars 7, 8, 9, you know my opinion. Like that's like the worry for Wheel of Time, where like it's just refreshing to see somebody adapt something that they actually love and like have been dreaming of adapting since they read it as a teenager, and it really comes through on screen. Like regardless of some of the changes you might have made, like people might be upset with certain creative decisions, or like you chose not to spend time on this character, or this character doesn't show up, but like what he did felt so genuine, and it felt like he really tried to make an adaptation for the fans, and he is a fan. And it was just like really nice to see that love and passion come through on the screen.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, I again, I can't speak to it being a faithful adaptation either, but I feel the same way you do in that it feels like there was love put into the making of it, and so for that alone, I think it's worth seeing, not just because one of the most revered sci-fi fantasy properties of our time or our generation, but also star-studded cast. I mean, we got Josh Brolin, we got Zendaya, we got you name it, Oscar Isaac,
Javier
Timothée Chalamet.
Bardem,
Yeah.
Skarsgård, like Rebecca Ferguson. I have the IMDb open in front of me. I just don't know these people off the top.
Momoa, like
yeah, Charlotte Rampling. I don't even know what she was in, but like the way Villeneuve talks about her is like she's one of the best actresses in the world.
Sorry, who's that?
She played the
Reverend
Mother Superior.
Yeah. Oh man, she was scary. Yeah. Yeah, and also like I've never seen Rebecca Ferguson in anything, but I thought she was fantastic in this.
Oh yeah.
Excellent casting.
That was the mother.
Yeah.
Even that scene where like it's like his vision of the future, which we didn't really touch on, but I thought the way that was handled in this, it was very clear to see like those visions were like subjective in a way, like those are a future that could be. Again, I haven't read the books. My theory was that because she went outside of the original design of the Bene Gesserit, that he's sort of like this weird enigma where it's like he can see what was supposed to happen and has influence over it. Again, referencing like what she said before, a bridge between past, future, present, all that stuff. So I thought that was really cool. The visual representation of that was incredible. Just like it must have been like grueling to shoot scenes one way and then learn the choreography to shoot it again a different way. Like super cool, painstaking film process. And again, just speaks to how much love and care went into making this. Final thoughts for you there, Will?
Just to touch on the vision, I loved it because like all of my knowledges of Paul Atreides is like he's not like other hero characters in that he's not really a hero for the majority of his lifetime, because a lot of his actions results in consequences are like pretty shitty for everyone. So I kind of liked it, like how you see I liked how like there's like this whole like engineered like Messiah storyline that's going on, but it's also like it's basically setting up to like result in something bad, which is like not really what you see with other heroes. I was reading like this one like comparison with Luke Skywalker and Paul, and like they said like Paul is more like Anakin in that like he kind of like his like destiny, if you will, is like already like put into place, and it's like not very good. Which like I'm really like curious to see if they'll like touch on that more with like this part 2, because like he basically launched, like he becomes like this like central figure to like this religion that gets created, and basically the entire universe goes to war in his name and stuff. And
as we see in those visions.
But I mean, like you see like glimpses of that, because like when he's like standing like on like the, what do you call it,
the
like
ship,
like the loading dock of the ship, like he looked like an asshole. It's like and you get to see like all his like army of like there's of like his like army of like House Atreides legions, and also like a mixture of like Fremens and stuff like that, and like they're just like annihilating like these other soldiers and stuff like that. But like he, like the way he was like dressed and like the way he looked and stuff, like he looked kind of like darker and evil, which was,
well, I think that was touched on even in that duel, for example, like when they meet Stilgar in like after they escape from the worm, him and his mom, and like that is the first person he kills, and almost feels like the first step on this journey that he witnessed, like just endless death and destruction in his name is what he saw in his vision, and that moment was the first step on that journey. And that's like I love that scene in retrospect too, because like he doesn't want to kill him, like he tries to make him surrender twice or 3 times in that duel, And even Stilgar says, like, is he trying to like make a fool out of him? Like, is he shaming him in this, like, this is supposed to be like an honorable fight? And then she says, like, he's never killed, he's never taken a life. And like, that was the first step on his journey. And then as soon as that moment is over, he very decisively says he's not leaving the planet. He sees his path and it takes him into the desert.
Right.
Like, I loved that.
And like, yeah. Well, I think there was like that one scene a little bit earlier where it's like a vision where it's like, in order to like be born again, he has to die, but the way to die is to kill another person. I was like, holy fuck. Like,
yeah, it's sort of being whispered to him in that
like,
moment.
I wonder if that was like, you know, like Mother Superior like FaceTiming him or something.
But it's
like,
interesting, like the character he kills, he saw in visions earlier.
Yeah.
Like the character he kills is the same character that in one of his visions says, like, follow me, I will show you the ways of the desert.
Yeah, and like it's like it almost seemed like they were like friendly, like he was almost like a mentor to him.
Exactly, yeah.
And then he just gets like smirked and like,
but
that's it.
Paul also references to Dr. Kynes that like he can see her dreams as well.
Yeah.
And saw like the lover she had before or whatever. So I wonder if that was somebody else's vision that he was sort of seeing.
Well, even the visions are completely unreliable because the first one he sees is Zendaya's character Chani killing him.
Yeah.
Which
so
still
like,
could come to pass.
It could, but like his visions feel more allegorical and metaphorical than literal. And because even when the Mother Superior, the Bene Gesserit mother, she asks him, like, do you often dream things that happen? And he says, not exactly.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting
immediately, right?
Yeah. And she's, I hope you survive, boy.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I love that moment because this is something just to do with movie marketing. In the trailers, every single trailer for the movie, that scene happens. And she asks him that question. He says yes in the trailers every single time. And I love that in the trailers, there's like multiple moments in the trailers that just are not in the film at all.
Yeah, I avoid trailers now because that's often not the case.
Oh yeah, I watched the trailers after the film. Like,
okay.
I saw the first trailer before I watched The Green Knight. I was just in the theater. But then like I didn't watch anything until after I'd seen the movie, and then I was showing my mom the trailer, and I was like, we have to see this, like. And then that's when I noticed it. And I was like, oh, yeah, that exact scene happens, except they changed the dialogue. I love that.
I think every movie should take, a lesson from this. And that you don't have to, like, just show us that there's big sandworms and that'll probably get people in the theater.
Yep.
Like,
man, like watching like Green Knights. I remember they showed the trailer for the Green Knights when I was watching the Green Knights. Like,
yeah.
I was like, what the fuck?
They literally did the same thing when I went to see this movie. And I was literally like, please, fucking, like, I'm here. You sold me the ticket already. Stop. Like,
this is why whenever, like, also like this is one of the reasons why I actually enjoy going on my own is because I didn't show up on time. I showed up like because like my ticket was for like 9:15. I didn't get there until like 9:40 is when I actually walked into the theater.
No way.
Like the trailers were like just finishing. I was like, sweet.
Yeah, see, I am too anxious to do that shit with or without anybody else. I'm like, what if I go and like there's been times where the movie actually starts at the time on the ticket and I'm like, the fuck. So I'm pissed.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Cannot wait for part 2. Like,
yeah, and I can't wait to fucking read ahead because there's no way I'm going to be able to not now.
Yeah, for 2 years is too long to wait.
Yeah.
I'll at least be able to finish book 1. Like,
yeah.
But like honestly, that's a quick turnaround. Like that's for a movie this size, like being like it's coming out in 2 years. That's very quick. Like that's pretty much as fast as it could possibly go.
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah.
There's always things like reshoots too that could delay it, but generally speaking, that's pretty quick. Yeah, but I guess like the Star Wars was similar.
I mean they announced
17.
3 Star Wars movies. Like they announced a whole trilogy that came out every 2 years. Like only the Lord of the Rings came out back to back because they filmed them all at the same time.
Yeah.
So like they needed a year of editing just to release.
Yeah, you often only get it like with the last part where they split the last book into 2, like I guess like Hunger Games, Twilight, the Harry Potter are examples of like they filmed it all at once and then tried to stretch it out.
And you can feel that it's not necessary.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure Hunger Games Part 1 was like the most trash movie I've ever seen in my life. Like nothing happens.
Oh man. Anyways, that'll do it for our discussion on Dune. We weren't able to get to everything, but this movie was great and covered so much ground that like there's no way we could have. So those are some of the things we love. I'm sure Dune's going to come up a lot as we move forward with our
maybe we'll do
podcast.
Another Dune review to touch on all the things we didn't touch on after a rewatch.
And I think Dune will definitely show up in an episode of Ruminations, the book Dune and the book series Dune. We'll get to that eventually as well. And Lords of Lore, you can check us out every Tuesday where we cover some sort of topic on fantasy or sci-fi. Or do a movie review like this one. You can also catch us on Friday playing D&D, doing interviews, or doing book reviews. I think that's about it. Check out our book review we did for Ninth House that came out last Friday. And this Friday you can catch something, and next Friday you can catch us playing D&D. We're on YouTube. We're on any podcast, your favorite podcast app, and Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. You can find that all down below here, depending on where I am on your screen right now. And I'm Matt.
I'm Luca.
And I'm Will.
And we are the Lords of Lore.